besties. If you're new here, I am Lexi and this is my YouTube channel. I feel like I've been doing a lot of my intros in this pink shirt, and I do own more than this one sweatshirt. If you've already looked at the title, then you know that we are doing a 24-hour reading challenge. This is a highly popular concept on YouTube, and I just decided, you know, I'm gonna try that. So you might be wondering, Lexi, you have a full-time job. Like, you cannot dedicate a full 24 hours consecutively to reading, and to that I say you would be right. So instead of reading for 24 hours consecutively, I'm just gonna set my timer to 24 hours and have it count down, and I will be pausing or stopping it when I have to, you know, get up to the bathroom, do some work, do some chores, take my dog out, whatever. So the 24 hours is gonna be me actually reading for 24 hours. There are a couple books that I know right away that I want to read in this challenge. And so the first one for that is Spells for Forgetting. This one, I know that there's some kind of magic happening here. Somebody died and we're kind of investigating that kind of murder. But this is very interesting because it seems like more of a paranormal but modern day kind of witchy type story. Then the next book I want to pick up is Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. There's no reason that I want to pick this up other than it's by T. Kingfisher. I literally don't even know what the story is about, but it's T. Kingfisher and I trust her. The next book I want to pick up is The 7-Year Slip by Miss Ashley Poston. Sorry, I forgot who wrote this. This is a magical realism story. We're following a woman who lives in this apartment that can slip 7 years back in time, and she meets her love of her life in this apartment. But when they flash forward 7 years and she meets him in present day, he turns into kind of like an asshole. So she's wondering what happened between that time when they met and the present. This is a book I was planning on reading in my prior romance blog, but I just didn't pick this one up, so I want to give it a try now. The next book I want to pick up is Heartless by Miss Elsie Silver. Now this is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series. I read the first one, Flawless, and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars, and then I went ahead and bought the rest of the book in the series. This book I believe is supposed to be following Cade and Willa. Cade is Rhett's brother and Willa is that chick, I think her name is Summer's best friend. What makes me nervous to pick this one up is that there is a child involved in the story. So Cade has a son who I don't remember what happened to the wife. I think she might have passed away or they divorced or whatever, but there's a kid that's heavily present in this book, and if you know me guys, you know that I don't like children in my books. I don't want to see the inkling of a child in my book. So it makes me nervous to pick this up knowing that there is a child that's heavily involved in this, but I did really like the first one and I bought the rest of it, so it's like I gotta get to the series at some point. So these are the 4 books that I plan on reading in this 24-hour reading challenge. I don't know if I'll be able to read all of these in 24 hours or if I'm going to be way ahead of myself and I will need to actually pick up more books, but we shall see. We're going to be starting with these and I will check in with you guys. I look horrible. I look disgusting. I look like I haven't slept in like 48 hours, and that's because I had a migraine for 2 days in a row and my health is struggling. Today's the first day that I felt okay in a bit, so I decided to start reading, and I started reading with this book, Spells for Forgetting. So what I'm doing with this 24-hour challenge, as I had told you guys before, I just set my timer to 24 hours and having it count down. Because I have a full-time job, I can't like dedicate a full 24 hours to reading. So I started reading this morning, start my countdown clock, and I'm halfway through Spells for Forgetting, and I think I read about 3.5 hours and it got me to this point. And so this book, I don't think I mentioned what this book is about. So we have Emery Blackwood, whose life was changed forever when her best friend Lily died in a fire, and her boyfriend August Salt was accused of being the murderer. So we are following multiple perspectives in this story. So we're following Emery, who lives on the island. So they live on Shorter Island, which is somewhere in the Pacific Northwest is what I'm gathering. It's kind of like a small town island, but she's like an adult now and her friend Lily died when they were teenagers. It's been many years and she's like still living in the town. She's still running her mom's tea shop. And then we have August, who decided to come back into town because his mom recently passed away and he's coming back to bury her. And so him coming back to the island is stirring up a lot of like problems with the people that live on the island because they're like convinced that he's a murderer. But back when Lily died, they didn't have enough evidence to put him away. His mom, Eloise, and him, they left for, I think they're Seattle, and they've been like living there for quite a while. He went to college, he's like a teacher now. But like I said, coming back into the island is stirring a lot of like old feelings and a lot of old memories. So what I've been able to gather so far is there's some shadiness that's happening in this town. Like once he came back, everyone's like, oh my god, what's he doing back here? And they are uncomfortable with him being there. I think this town is hiding a lot of secrets from August and from Emery, because Emery is realizing a lot of stuff that happened back in high school and things that were kept from her. Because this is called Spells for Forgetting and there's been little hints of magic-y stuff going on. My suspicion is like this town, and this is just me theorizing, that this town made some kind of like sacrifice or some kind of like magic-y deal for the benefit of the town, but they had to kind of have like their sacrificial lamb, and that's where August came in, and it's where like Lily's murder is involved. So I think that there's something shady going on. I like this book. It's being told in multiple perspectives, so like we're mainly following Emery and August, and then like the chapters keep switching between them, but then we'd also get randomly thrown in like one of the townspeople's like perspective on there. Like we would get the cop, and then we would get like Emery's current boyfriend Dutch put in there, and then we would get like Emery's dad. For right now, it's sitting at a 3 stars. What's gonna move it to a 4 stars is if there is some kind of like magic deal happening. So I could finish it today. It's only about like 1 o'clock, and I have 21 hours and 34 minutes left on my clock, so I could finish it today, but I don't know if I want to do that. We'll keep reading and I'll get back to you once I'm done. Good morning, guys. I'm coming at you at a much better dressed and better looking Lexi than yesterday. I was still very much struggling yesterday with like the after effects of having a migraine, but I finished Spells for Forgetting last night, so I read this in one day actually. It took me about 6 hours to read this, and my clock, it looks like I have like 19 hours 10 minutes and almost 53 seconds left to read this. This book right off the bat, I'm gonna say this is 3 stars, because I mentioned earlier that we're following Emery and August, and they were like high school sweethearts until August got blamed for Emery's best friend Lily's murder. This book is very much so a convoluted murder plot of trying to figure out who actually committed the murder, while also like throwing magic in there for a little bit. The book doesn't explicitly say that the women in this island are witches, but it's kind of implied that only women can be witches. And for a town that all knows that magic exists, they are very much like, oh yeah, somebody murdered Lily, like, and they didn't not once think that maybe magic had to do something with it. The townspeople here wasn't all that smart. There was also this weird side plot about this orchard that August's family owns, and it's been in his family for quite some time, that like all the townspeople wanted to get back. That the whole like murder plot, the orchard, the framing of August was kind of just like convoluted, and also just like the magic system wasn't like fleshed out well enough to see like to have a reason as to why magic needed to be included in this book. I feel like they could very much have told this story without having magic been there at all, but it's not getting a 1 star or a 2 star, because like what I really liked about this is the people within this book, they were very well and fully developed. Like Emery and August felt like really well developed people, and I loved the love story between them. And then everybody else in this town, I feel like there weren't bad people, but you could tell like what their motivations are. Like the writing was really well done. It was very vibey. It felt like you were living in the Pacific Northwest while like reading this book. It really felt like you were out in like an island where it was kind of like rainy and gloomy, and like the vibes are there. But I just feel like the plot was just so convoluted that it didn't make any sense towards the end. Like the first half of this book, I was gripped. I was like, yes, I'm into it. And then stuff started getting revealed, and you were like, what is happening here? Like that doesn't make any sense. I would be definitely willing to pick up another book by Adrienne Young. I don't know if she's written any other super popular ones. I know that this one is super popular, so I am interested in reading another one of her books. But for right now, what I'm gonna pick up is I'm gonna pick up the 7-Year Slip. That is a romance, and that has a bit of like a magical realism in it. So let's pick that up and see how long that's gonna take me to read today. I probably will I'll start it today, but I don't know if I'll be able to finish it today. And I will start my clock and see how long that's gonna take me. I'm surprised that I read that in like 6 hours. And romance novels, I kind of speed through a little bit quicker than that. This reading challenge, now that I know that I have 19 hours left, I'm like, how many books am I gonna read in this 24 hours? We shall see. Okay, besties, I have finished The 7-Year Slip by Mr. Ashley Posson. And unfortunately, I think I'm gonna give it a 2 stars. Following our main character, who owns this apartment that her aunt passes down to her. Her aunt passed away, and when she moves in, her aunt like tells her, you know, like there's something magical about this apartment. It can slip 7 years back in time, and you might meet people there. So even when her aunt tells her this, like, she still doesn't believe it. But then she does meet a guy in this apartment, and his name is Ewan. Apparently her aunt 7 years ago subletted this apartment to him for a short time being, and they meet and they fall in love in the course of 1 weekend. This book was very much insta-lovey, and this is one of the reasons why it's getting 2 stars. So there's points in this apartment where the apartment wants to stay in the present day and then wants to slip back to 7 years. So once it slips to the present day, she's not able to see Ewan, but she runs into him in the present day. He is a chef, and he is shopping around to certain like imprints to sell his book. And our main character, she works at an imprint. What the fuck is her name? Oh, her name's Clementine. yeah, Clementine works at this one imprint, and so she is trying to get him to sell his book to her imprint. But when she meets him in present day, he's completely different than what he was 7 years ago. He is kind of an asshole, quite honestly. Now that in the present, I'm gonna go into some things that you might be consider a spoiler, so I'll put a spoiler warning below. Midway through this book, we find out that the aunt actually unalived herself, and she had a relationship with someone in the apartment with this whole time slippage thing. And the aunt kept saying her 2 biggest rules for this apartment is that when you walk in, you take off your shoes immediately, and you don't fall in love with anybody you meet in the apartment. And they both like broke that rule. The other thing that's giving me the ick about this book is that present day Ewan, he's going by James for some reason, and he's kind of an asshole to Clementine. Actually, I don't like their relationship at all. It's not cute. There is 1 or 2 scenes in here where there was actually like a sex scene, and that was fine, but the circumstances surrounding that sex scene gave me the ick because when they meet present day, he's kind of an asshole to her, and he's like, no, we're not gonna get together. And then she goes back to the apartment where Ewan 7 years ago meets, and then she ends up having sex with him. So I was like, some part of that feels like she's taking advantage of Ewan's more naive, younger self instead of the present. It's just giving me the ick. It's kind of weird. The whole thing about this book, I didn't like it. I should probably stay away from magical realism books because of the way that the magic system of the apartment is like really fleshed out, and it's just overall kind of weird. I don't really care for this book, honestly. I'm probably gonna sell it or get rid of it in some way. Again, it's a 2-star book, unfortunately. I will give Ashley Poston another chance because I did like her writing. I just don't like the use of the apartment and the 7-year time slippage that's happening. I think it's not working out for this book, so 2 stars. 2 stars. I'm gonna need y'all to forgive me for how absolutely ugly I look today. My hair is very greasy and I need to take a shower, but I need to give you guys an update. So I wrote down all the times it's been taking me to finish these books, and for Spells for Forgetting, it took me 5 hours, 50 minutes, and 8 seconds to read that book. And then for the 7-year slip, it took me 4 hours, 51 minutes, and 9 seconds to finish reading that book. And then I read Thornhedge yesterday. This is a very short book. It's a little over 100 pages, and I read this very quickly. I wrote down that I finished this in 1 hour, 51 minutes, and 9 seconds. So in total, I read for 12 hours, 32 minutes, and 26 seconds. That's how long it took me to read those 3 books. That means I am halfway there to completing this challenge. This challenge is actually a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be. So what I decided to do is just to pick up some books that I am dying to read, because right after I finished reading Thornhedge, I was like, I want to take a break. I don't want to read again. So I think what I needed to do to motivate me to continue to read is to pick up books that have been calling out to me that I like really want to read. I know I initially said that I was gonna read Flawless in this vlog, but after thinking about it, I'm kind of scared of that book because of the kid aspect in it. So it's making me very nervous to pick up that book. So instead, I decided to pick up Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. I am about 20 pages into this book, so just not very far. This one is a little over 300 pages, and this is one that I'm excited to read. And so if this doesn't take me to 24 hours, which I don't think that it will, just based on Spells for Forgetting and the 7-year slip were also around the 300 page mark, I feel like this is probably going to take me about like 5 to 6 hours to read, and I think I might need to pick up a second book in order to get to the full 24 hours. So the second book I decided to pick up is A Perilous Undertaking. So this is book 2 in the Veronica Speedwell series, and so I'm just hoping that picking up Emily Wilde, which is like a highly anticipated book for me, and continue on with the Veronica Speedwell series is also another book that I like really want to pick up, is going to help me get over this 24-hour reading challenge. This is the plan going forward. Hopefully I'll get to 24 hours, because honestly, now that I'm doing this challenge, I did not know I could read that much in 24 hours. Like if I fully dedicated 24 hours to reading, I did not know I could read, like, at this point, 3 books in, I'll probably 5 books down by the time I finish this challenge. Hopefully this takes us there. We shall see. Okay guys, I'm back to give you an update with this. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it, so I just have like 100 pages left of it. I'm really liking this so far. I think I need to go back and listen to the last like 50 pages or so because my mind kind of wandered. But what we have here is we have Emily and Wendell. This is the second book in Emily Wilde's series, and they are trying to find Wendell's door to his fairy world while also dodging some assassins that are out to get him. And we can see their relationship blooming a little bit more. Honestly, if you don't know what Emily Wilde is, like, just please Google it, because I don't want to give away too much because it'll spoil the first book for you. It's sitting at a 4-star book right now, but the ending I feel like is gonna pick up pace a lot. I mean, this has been like very fast paced. But the other thing I wanted to check in with you guys is that today is the last day of the month. So today is March 31st, and I actually need to take my medication today for my medical condition. I don't think I've actually spoken a whole ton about my medical condition, but I have had surgeries and radiation for it, and I have this one medication that I need to take on the last day of every month, and it is actually an injection. And I just remembered this morning that I need to take that, and the injection sits in the fridge until I need to take it, and I let it come to room temperature. It gets sit out at room temperature for 7 days before like going bad. So what I actually need to do is I need to take it out of the fridge right now, so that by the time it comes for me to go to sleep, I can just inject it and kind of like disassociate with my body and like fall asleep. So that's kind of like the plan. So let's go and get that out of the fridge right now. So this is the medication that I have to take, and I just opened the box, and then here are the instructions. And then here is the medication. So the needle sits in there, and once I take the cap off of it, I have to inject it into my body. It's like an auto inject, so basically you just like depress it into your skin, and then the needle goes right into your body, and then it injects the medication. I actually do this in my leg is where I find it to be the most effective, but it is very cold right now, and so I need to let this come to room temperature before I actually use it, because if I were to inject this into my body right now, it's gonna hurt like hell. So this will sit out for maybe like a couple of hours, and then when I go to sleep, I usually go to bed at like around 9-ish, I will inject that into my left leg and then have the medication work. I don't usually set a reminder or anything like that in my calendar to remind me to take my medication. I just normally know because the last week of the month is when I start to get a lot of headaches, and that's how I know that, oh my god, it's time for me to take my medication. And so I just like mentally remind myself like, okay, the last day of the month you have to inject yourself so that you can like feel better and go through the rest of the month without like in any kind of like major pain. And this past week I've had a lot of like neck pain, and I've had a few headaches where I've actually had to take a different set of medication. So actually I can show that to you. If I was having a really bad day, I would take a different injection. The injection that I just showed you is like a preventative, so I would not get like really bad headaches. But if I were to get a really bad headache, I'm supposed to take this medication. So what is in here is that we have a different kind of like auto injector, and then the medication is in this tube. So what I would do is like I would put it in here, screw it on, pull it out, and then in here is a needle. I don't know if you can see that, but in that tube is a needle. I would just hit this button and then inject it into my thigh. But if I can probably just show you the needle. The needle sits inside, I just twisted this thing off. The needle sits inside this, and if I were to take it out, this is what it would look like. That's basically what it is. The needle and the medication sits inside this piece of tubing, and then this screws onto it, and then once I'm ready to take it, I inject it into my body. My doctor told me that basically when I get a really bad headache, the best thing I do is to take this medication right away so that I can hit it hard so that it doesn't come back and reoccur. I guess that was my mistake when I ended up in the hospital last year in November, is I didn't have like an emergency set of medication like this that I would take right away to hit it. I actually was getting a lot of headaches last week where I had to take 3 of these and then it knocked it out. So basically needles are kind of in my life. I should probably get a sharps container because all the needles that I've used, whether it's that auto injector that's warming up in the kitchen counter right now, or if it's this one right here, I kind of have them like loosely floating around in my room, and that's pretty bad. Like I wouldn't say it's floating around, like I have it in a shelf inside of a cupboard, but definitely if someone were to like stick their hand in there, they could get poked. But yeah, that's what I have to do for myself when I take that medication that's in the kitchen counter. I'm gonna try to show you guys, but who knows, I might forget later tonight, and I can show you kind of how I mentally like prep myself to like kind of disassociate with my body with taking that medication. That's it. I'll check up with you guys maybe later tonight. Okay guys, I'm getting ready to take this medication. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this at all, and I'm wearing pants, I'm wearing shorts, so I am about to take this medication. Pray for me. The needle is inside There. All I have to do is depress it into my skin and then we'll be good to go. That was supposed to click twice. Like once I put it in, it's supposed to click and then click again, and it didn't. So I'm trying to look inside and I'm hoping that it all went through. Let's hope so. Okay guys, I have finished Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, and I have to say, I'm giving this book 5 stars. I cannot get too much into the plot of this book without absolutely spoiling it for you. But what you need to know is that Emily and Wendell are on a journey to find Wendell's door to his fairyland. And along the way, they meet some people, they have some encounters. This one's very fast-paced and very actiony versus the first book. And I will say that I actually enjoyed this one more than I enjoyed the first book. The plot of this was very fast-paced. We were moving, we were grooving, and the romance between Emily and Wendell kicked up a beat. I just love the way that this story went, and I love the ending of this. The ending of this was very clutch. I feel like there are so many possibilities for the third book. I looked up when the third book is gonna get published, and it's not gonna come out until February of 2025. That is a whole ass year from now. I'm honestly just gonna struggle until the third book comes out. Like, I want it right now. I don't know what kind of drugs Heather Fawcett is putting into this series to make me give it all 5 stars. I love Emily, I love Wendell, I love the friends that we've met along the way, and I'm so excited for the next book in the series. So this book took me 6 hours, 2 minutes, and 25 seconds to read. So I'm at a total of 18 hours, 34 minutes, and 51 seconds, which does mean to say that I have to read a 5th book. And so because I have to read a 5th book to get to 24 hours, I decided to pick up the 2nd book in the Veronica Speedwell series. This one is just as long page-wise as Emily Wilde. So this is gonna take me maybe 5 to 6 hours, and that's definitely gonna put me at 24 hours. I'm just shocked that I could read this much in 24 consecutive hours. Hi, a very unattractive editing Lexi is here to clarify what I just said in that clip that you just watched. I don't mean consecutive hours. I'm not reading for 24 hours straight. The only reason I'm inserting myself here is because I do say at the end of this video that I read for 24 consecutive hours a lot. Apparently, I don't know what the word consecutive means, so I have to apologize for that, but you guys know what I mean. Okay, back to the video. Just a reminder, I'm not doing this all in one day. I'm doing it in 24 consecutive hours. So literally when I put down the book, I stop my timer, and then when I decide to pick up the book again, I start the timer again. I'm excited to get to this one. I read the first book in this series back in November, so it's been a while. I might need to like refresh my memory as to what's going on here, but I'm excited to get started on this one. Guys, I realized that I had not updated it all while I was reading the 2nd book in the Veronica Speedwell series, and unfortunately, I've already finished it. I read this so fast, it's pretty much in a blink of an eye. 2nd book is following Veronica and Stoker as they investigate a murder. I can't get too deep into it because I don't want to spoil the 1st book in the series for you guys, but just know that they are investigating this murder, and the person who asked them to investigate this murder is a little sus. While investigating this murder, it takes them through some hijinks. They get involved in an underground sex orgy club and accidentally taking some opium. The opium scene in this book, quite honestly, sent me into a tizzy. This thing happened that honestly it made me blush, maybe kicking my little feet. This book further develops the relationship between Veronica and Stoker, and honestly is driving me kind of insane that they won't kiss and they won't fuck each other. I ended up asking some besties on the Discord to just throw me a hint. Just let me know when we could get a genuine to honest to God kiss between Veronica and Stoker, and when do they actually have sex. And the besties came through and they let me know when that would happen. So my goal right now is to read at least 1 book in the series every month going forward. So by the time I reach the end of the year, I would have been caught up in the series. There are 9 books in the Veronica Speedwell series, and last night, once I finished this, I bought the other 3 in the series. I'm just gonna hold out on buying the other 4 until a bit later. I just want to know that I could stick to my plan of reading one book a month before buying the rest of the book in the series. But that is to say, this is a 5-star read. Like, if you want slow burn, if you want Regency, if you want a good mystery, this book is for you. This series is for you. Like Miss Deanna Rayburn, you need to give the people what they want. What the people want is a genuine, honest to God sex scene between Veronica and Stoker. So let's just wrap it all up here. Now that I've read all these books, I made it to 24 hours and let you guys know how long it took me to read each book. So we started off with Spells for Forgetting, which took me 5 hours, 50 minutes, and 8 seconds to finish. This ended up being a 3-star book because of the convoluted mystery behind this and the lack of witchiness or the explanation of the magic system in this. I did like it for the vibes, the romantic relationship between August and Emery. I love that for them. And I would try another Adrienne Young book. 3 stars doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it was fine. There were parts of it that I liked and there were some parts that was like kind of meh. And then I read Spells for Forgetting by Ashley Post. This took me 4 hours, 51 minutes, and 9 seconds to finish. And it is a 2-star book, unfortunately. The reason being for that is because this very much gave me nothing in terms of romance. It was very much insta-lovey. Clementine, honestly, was kind of a loser. And the magic system of how this apartment works, being able to slip back 7 years in time, didn't really make any sense. And then our love interest, Edwin/James, was kind of an asshole when he met Clementine. But then Clementine also, she just had it in her head. She was like, oh my God, how much this man has changed. People are gonna change in that amount of time. If you didn't change in 7 years as a person, I would be honestly concerned for you. This book was giving me nothing. I don't get what the girlies were saying. I don't get the hype. I would try another Ashley Poston novel because it's not like the writing was bad. It's just the story didn't make any sense. And then the next book I read was Thornhedge. And now that I'm doing this wrap up, I don't think that I actually explained what this book is about. This book is a short story fairy tale. So we're following Toadling, and she is a human child that was snuck away into the land of fairies. So she was raised with like the toadlings or the water fairies, and so she's able to morph from like human state to her toad self. And then one day this knight comes around her corner of the woods because he heard a story about a castle or a keep that has something hidden away in it. And so Toadling is responsible for the thing that's being held up into the keep that she is like sworn to protect, or manage might be the better word. The funny thing about this novel is that both Toadling and the knight are like, no, we are ugly people. Like, we are very ugly. No matter if we solve the problem about what's in the keep, that's not gonna make us heroes. We will and shall forever remain ugly. Toadling straight up says, even if we solve this problem, that doesn't mean that I will magically turn into a beautiful princess. She's like, I'm ugly and I know it. I just know that T. Fisher's fantasy novels are for me because I gave this 4 stars. Even though it was a short story, it was a little over 100 pages. It's not exactly quite a 5 stars because the way this ended was kind of anticlimactic, but she did, you know, tell the story in a way that had me gripped. It took me 1 hour, 51 minutes, and 9 seconds to finish this book. And then the next book I read was Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This one is a 5-star read. This book is if Half a Soul and Veronica Spiva had a baby, this would be their love child. Emily and Wendell are 2 kind of unlikable characters because they're academics and they kind of live in that space and would do anything for their research, but their adventures is kind of taking them into a story where they're starting to like find their love for each other. This story surrounds them finding out more about Wendell's world and fairy and finding his door to his fairy world. I can't get too much into this because I don't want to give away the plot of the first book, but just know this book further advances their relationship between Emily and Wendell and gives us more fairy lore. This book took me 6 hours, 2 minutes, and 50 seconds to finish, I believe, but it was a 5-star read. I just love this world and I cannot wait for the 3rd book to come out. And then, like I already mentioned, the 5th book I read was Veronica Spiva, A Perilous Undertaking, and this is another 5-star book. This one took me 6 hours and 12 minutes exactly to finish. So all in all, it took me 24 hours, 46 minutes, and 51 seconds to read all 5 books. I honestly did not know that I could read this much in 24 consecutive hours. This challenge almost took me out. Once I finished Thornhedge, I was like, oh no, I have to keep going. I'm not at 24 hours like I thought it was gonna be. And so I picked up Emily Wilde and Veronica Spiva purposely knowing that these are books books that I want to read, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit them in a video anytime soon. So I was like, you know what, let's pull out the heavy hitters. Let's keep going. If I must make it to 24 hours, I actually will think twice before I do this challenge again. So that is it. That are all the books that I read in this 24-hour reading challenge. Please like, give this video a comment, and please subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when I upload. And I'll see you guys in another video next week. Bye!